What's up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of All Streets, and I'm here today with a very special guest, the co-founder and CEO of Simplex, a startup that allows you to purchase crypto with credit cards that was recently acquired for $250 million. Nimrod Lehavi, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So listen, first of all, I just broad strokes. I want to know your thoughts on what's happening in the Bitcoin and crypto market at the moment.
I think it's just another season. I mean, you're never all of a sudden. I mean, snow doesn't take you by surprise. It happens. I mean, winter, summer cycles. I think that whoever has been here for more than a couple of years has seen it happening. It's a bummer for sure. I'm not shrugging it off, but it's going to come back. Just hold whatever you have. Don't panic sell. I think that it's proven in the past as a very efficient time to just look down at your desk and do the work. When the next cycle is coming, you're gonna harvest everything you worked so hard for.
Well, it's interesting because you're obviously running a company and you guys were acquired. So I've heard a lot of people anecdotally say they were looking forward to a bear market to actually be able to do some work because it's too crazy in the bull market when price is only going up. Have you found actually that you're getting a lot of things done now that you weren't able to do before because the market is somewhat less volatile and the volume is sort of dissipated?
I think it's slightly diverse the focus inside the company, but I think that with other companies, you're able to get much more attention. Like if, in the full bull cycle, it's impossible to get anyone to discuss any feature, any service, any new solution. When the market is turning bearish, everybody's, especially if you have like features that save a specific percentile for every transaction that this platform does, all of a sudden you're the messiah now. So, in that aspect, it's a good time to work.
Yeah, it makes sense. So I'm really curious. What's your very brief background and how did you find Bitcoin in the first place and decide that you wanted to start Simplex?
Sure. So I started my way as a software developer, kind of by mistake. It was back in 1997. And then I had a software boutique in Israel. We were working with tons of startups, military banks, financial institutions. And I just bumped into the Bitcoin whitepaper. I think it was 2011 or 2012. And it just, it was shock and awe. I really loved it. It looked like, code poetry. And I really knew I wanted to do something in Bitcoin. I had a bunch of ideas. Tried to buy since it was single-digit dollars, just couldn't. And started to work. At the end, I bought like low double-digit. But still, it was very, very difficult, very cumbersome, and it looked like it had to be as easy as you buy sneakers online or anything else. And from all the ideas that I was tinkering with, what later became Simplex looked the most interesting one. First of all, because it was considered at the time like the holy grail, and also it's something that Israel is traditionally very good at. Fraud prevention, payments, all of that. So it looked like a definitely a good solution to pursue from Israel without the need to relocate. So we started to work on that. Yeah, we started to work on that in 2013. We launched the company in 2014. We had a few market cycles on our backs.
Yes, you were very early in Bitcoin. I mean, every time we hear somebody talk about, I bought it in single digits, but I was late. I wanted to buy it I bought it in double digits. I was late. I wanted to buy it in single digits. And then there's people like me who was like, man, I bought it at 1800 for the first time. I wish I could have bought it at 1000 or 100. Why do people always feel like they're late to Bitcoin?
It's always like that. Someone asked me like, did you buy enough? I told him, there's no such thing. I don't have 21 million, so no, it's not enough.
So you want them all?
Of course.
Yeah,
I want it all and I want it now.
So you've been in business for quite a long time. What have you seen in that time as far as those cycles and the interest? And so obviously you said that this cycle is a bit predictable, but I'm assuming before this you saw incredible volume like you've never seen before. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been exactly like that the previous cycle. Like we were struggling with a bear market in early 2016, and then the market started to pick up like crazy, and we saw an amazing hockey stick. And then when the market, jumped off a cliff basically I think it was February 2018, and everybody was shocked. It was definitely a bad experience at the time, especially after growing for, I don't know, like a year of just growth. But this time we were kind of expecting it. At least we weren't taking liabilities that we couldn't handle later on. We knew what to focus on in a bull market and what can we leave for later for a bear market. Like which features should we work on now to capture as much value as possible? Which ones could be left for later? I think if nothing else, at least we've learned from the experience.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. But as much as you said it's predictable like the seasons,
It's crap.
no, it's true. But this time, I think there were a lot more narratives, institutional adoption, and super cycles, and price will never retrace more than 20 or 30%. So, were you surprised at all by the size of the retracement? Because I don't think anyone was surprised that there would be a correction. I think a lot of people were just surprised at the velocity from 40 to below 30.
I don't think so. I mean, I think if anything, I was surprised that it stopped at around 30. My bet was around.
For now.
No, seriously. Yeah, for now. I don't know. I was expecting it to go even lower at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, 20 has never been retested, and that was the all-time high for a few years. So even technically, I think a lot of people probably look at that area as a likely bottom if this continues down.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a shorter period. And again, it didn't go. I mean, previous time was from 19,700 to 3,500 or something like that. Yeah. So now if we went from 68,000 to 30,000, it's still pretty good. And it's going to be a shorter cycle. And the next cycle is just going to be, I think, even more aggressive on the uptrend and with more institutions jumping in. And again, I'm not even claiming that the next cycle will be the last one. I think we're heading, yeah, exactly. when I started, when I was young and, and started my way in the industry, I was very determined. I was telling everyone, listen, in 5 to 10 years, this is going to be like mainstream. And that was a decade ago. So now I'm saying, maybe in 20 years, it's going to be mainstream, maybe. Because if you look at the end, nothing really changed. It's still very, very early days. Regulation is behind, adoption is behind, banks are behind, governments are behind. Everything is like dragging along slowly. So I still think it's the very early days, which is, in a certain extent, it's fun because it's still exciting and new, and we're still the early adopters and the pioneers. So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, as someone joked the other day, that the day that Goldman Sachs and Peter Schiff and all these people start writing glowing reports about how amazing Bitcoin is, maybe that'll be the time that we can finally start to worry about a top. But it's interesting that you say, I think a lot of people would say that it has gone mainstream, at least, I guess, in awareness. Like your average person maybe has at least heard of it now. But I agree with you that for it to really be mainstream would be for it to be an asset that was viewed just like your stocks or your gold or your bonds, or literally just a part of anyone's portfolio. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. And also, when's the point when I'm going to stop being asked the questions, by suit and tie bankers asking me questions as if it's like, 2012, isn't Bitcoin only for criminals? No, dude. It's like, haven't you read anything? It's like literally, I was sitting with some bankers about a week ago, and they were asking questions that really made me rethink my the way I think about time travel. Literally, questions I was asking in 2012, 2013, like, is it only for criminals? Wouldn't the government stop it?
Energy.
Like, yeah,
China, India, the same stories that come back. Right, the same stories that come back. That really is the best. That is the best signal that they just don't get it yet, because it's the same recycled narratives every single time, right?
Exactly.
So that said, obviously, we are both firm believers that like you said, this is just a season and there'll be more
Yeah.
cycles. How high can this thing go? How high can Ethereum go?
Wow, it's
Both.
really, I don't know. My saddest crypto story is that I sold 15,000 ETH for $1 each because it was going nowhere for a year. So
That's a sad
just
story.
it is. So
That's a
just to
really sad
demonstrate,
story. I sold,
just
I sold, if it makes you feel better, I sold easily $40 million worth of Doge over the past few years. Don't have any now.
I
So.
I have I have a very sad story about Doge. I was in a conference in Berlin in 2013, and they were giving it out, and I remember very vividly coming back to the office, looking at the QR code, and just like throwing it on the desk without even claiming the token. So yeah,
Unbelievable. So yeah,
well,
Bitcoin ETH, what do you think? I mean, reasonably, where can these things go?
I think Bitcoin will go easily to 200K, possibly even next cycle. I mean, it's I was saying it like a year ago and everybody was laughing, but it hit like almost 70K.
It's 3x.
Yeah, it's pretty easy for Bitcoin. Ethereum, I don't know, it's definitely I think if nobody's gonna steal away the crown with regards to DeFi, if 2.0 actually gonna work, I think it can go up, easily 10x, maybe 20x. I mean, I'm a firm believer in DeFi, and if it's going to continue working predominantly on top of ETH rather than other blockchains, then it can go to the moon.
So you could see Ethereum at $20,000, $30,000.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That's good because I tweeted earlier this year that I thought ETH could go to $10,000 and I got absolutely slaughtered for being a mega bull and that's insane and ridiculous. And I thought that was a conservative target. I thought it would go to 10 in the next cycle, and I still do.
It could again if nobody steals the crown for DeFi, I think DeFi is going. I love it. I mean, it's crazy exciting. I'm balls deep in multiple projects. I think it's amazing. Like it's fun. It's interesting. It's an anthropological research in fear and greed, and some actual substance which can somehow trickle down to scenarios which are really useful for everyday folks, for regular
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah.
So I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you already made $15,000 selling 15,000 of them. So you've got to be pretty.
Exactly.
It's a tough story, man. Tough. The Doge one's tough too. I wonder how much Doge they had given you that you failed to claim.
I
It's pretty
I
fun.
I have no idea. It's probably
And you
worth a
don't
lot
want to
of
know.
money.
Definitely
I
don't
don't
want to
want to
know.
know. Definitely
So,
don't want to
so
know.
I'm curious with Simplex, what coins can you purchase with your credit card?
Right now, we support about 70 cryptocurrencies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't remember all the list, but all the top ones, at least 5 stable coins, and we keep adding more all the time. Basically the idea is to support everything at the end.
I'm curious. I mean, maybe the best insight you can give is what behavior are you seeing from your customers, especially as we've seen the correction? I've spoken with a lot of exchange CEOs and such, and they were seeing this absolute boom of retail involvement, which has obviously fallen off to some degree in the
Yeah,
last 2 months.
absolutely. It's I think it's like that every time. We predominantly provide the credit card enablement. I mean, we started doing SEPA Swift, and then we started providing bank accounts, and we're now a principal member of Visa Network. So we're starting to issue cards actually end of the month to our partners. So any of our partners can start issuing Visa debit cards to their clients on top of our infrastructure, branded to their brand. Um, but because it's predominantly credit cards, it's predominantly retail, and retail is a follow market. They follow the trend. So
Right.
mostly when it's going up like crazy. When it's going down, surprisingly, they keep buying the dip for a few days until they just get exhausted. But you definitely see it. Like if it's a short drop, they'll buy the hell out of that dip. If it's like a real one, they're out. They're waiting.
Yeah. The dip that keeps on dipping. But I guess the question is whether they also sell at the bottom. Buy the first dip, price keeps going down. Do you see them selling? Or do you just see them kind of go away
We
and come back eventually when price is higher again.
Yeah, usually. I mean, we saw actually like we saw profit taking at the peak. So, retail
That's
investors are
good.
becoming more, yeah, or at least, the smarter ones have taken profit.
And then there's those of us who are just here for $1 million Bitcoin and waiting a few years, right? And
Exactly.
gonna hand it off to our kids, so the price doesn't really matter. So I'm curious, why did you decide to sell? Right? Is the company's called Nuvei, I believe, correct? Who purchased you?
Yeah,
So why did you
yeah.
decide to sell to them, and what does that look like structurally for you? What's your everyday role? Are you still participating? Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, no change for Simplex. Simplex remains its own division. We do everything that has to do with crypto. And one of the reasons that we decided to sell is that this is, and again, I hate the word, but synergy. The synergies are just amazing. It's 1 + 1 = 3. We were always, struggling with banking and struggling with licensing and struggling with alternative payment methods. Now we have everything. We're going to add something like 600 payment methods globally. We're going to
Oh,
extend the license to a fully bank license, which will enable us to do so much more. We're adding additional locations where we can support even the credit card processing natively, which will make it will drive the price down. It's a huge tailwind, and without being too much of I don't know, without sounding like too much of a hacker, but we've infiltrated the fiat system. It's one of the largest payment processing companies in the world, market cap $14 billion, and now they've made a substantial step diving head into the crypto narrative. So they see it as a major move towards crypto. We are definitely a big seat at the table. We're discussing strategies going crypto side in the coming decade. Like our bank currently our EMI, but later on our bank at the top bar menu, you have deposit, withdraw, buy crypto, sell crypto. Merchants working with a buying company with Nuvei will be able to facilitate all the things that we're talking about as the benefits of crypto, international payment, 24/7 payment, all kinds of things that today in the strictly fiat world you're still struggling with.
yeah. It's interesting. They went public in September of 2020, right? And they've doubled their market cap in under a year.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
this
It's
company is
um,
booming.
they're here. They're down for business. They're not screwing around. Absolutely.
Right, but they're based in Canada, right? So obviously, I think Canada has proven to be, from a regulatory perspective, a bit more friendly than the United States. What are you guys operating in the United States? What are you
Yeah,
seeing
yeah,
here? What would it
absolutely.
take? Yeah,
So first of all, Nuvei is going for an IPO in the US as well. It's public, so I can talk about it.
yeah.
I think in a few months, I don't remember, in one of the stock exchanges in New York. And they operate, they're fully operational and licensed in the US. And we are about, well, traditionally, I would say about 30% of our volume is coming from the US, but recently it's over 50 in some
Wow.
cases, depending on the month. Yeah, so a lot of US credit cards are using the partners that are using Simplex, uh, which I think is very interesting. I mean, I used to think, in the past that the US is basically Coinbase land. But
Yeah,
it seems
not
like
anymore.
there are, yeah, exactly. There are so many people in the US that want to buy in different exchanges and different wallets, different currencies.
I think it's funny because there's probably a lot of people like me. I bought Coinbase stock, but I would never use Coinbase.
Same here.
Right. So like I've in the early days, I went through being locked out of my account too many times and security issues and all the things they had going on that didn't impress me as a user, but I still believe it'll be a very important company and I want access, I want
Yeah.
exposure to the stock. So that is a really interesting perspective. So I didn't realize that you guys had a credit card coming soon. We just saw Visa announced, I believe, $1 billion in the first half of 2021 in crypto card transactions. So clearly, this is huge, and they've upped their partners to roughly
Yeah.
100, right? So what does that look like? And do you think that these crypto credit cards are going to really push adoption? I do personally. So
I think it's really, well, it depends on a lot of things. Their announcement with $1 billion payment in crypto credit cards is that they mean the side where you're selling crypto to use as fiat through the debit card.
yeah,
Because the other way around is billions. We've pushed probably like a couple of
yeah,
billions this year.
yourself, right?
So
Sure.
and with regards to their partnerships, they announced that they are partnering up in the fast track with I think about 50 partners. So we are one of their principal members, which means that basically instead of going through the fast track, which is very fast and directly with Visa, but on the flip side is very limited, you can do the same with us with a full-fledged card program. That's why we partnered with them. We're also expanding right now. We're supporting only the Eurozone, but we're going to support global card issuing as well in the next few months. I'm not sure. I think it's right now more of a kind of a bragging right. I mean, when's the last time you actually sold Bitcoin to buy something? I can tell you
Well,
my last time. It's another sad story.
right. Oh gosh. So I'm an American, so we don't do it because of the tax implications, but there are places in the world where it makes a lot more sense, obviously.
So I bought a burger and a White Russian in 2013 in Berlin in room 77 for half a Bitcoin. I mean, it was a good burger, but not that good.
At
So
its peak, it was a $33,000 burger. It's good.
exactly.
So,
And that was the
right.
last time.
That was really the last time for you. I mean, even through last year, I was paying people in Bitcoin and stuff, but taxably, like if I said, for Americans, you buy a
Yeah,
cup of coffee, you just have a taxable transaction that you need
it
to
doesn't
like
make
send
sense.
off to
Yeah.
to the IRS or to your accountant to try to figure out what the cost basis is. So it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm hoping that we'll get a bit more reasonable regulation moving forward, but
They
I'm not
have to.
hopeful because I mean,
They have to. I think that if the US doesn't wake up on the regulator side, we're all going to start paying in yuan very soon.
digital yuans.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that, I mean, they proved it already in China. They're going to start expanding into Africa, and then it's done. Dollar is no longer dominant.
And do you think that that's still a part of the strong narrative for Bitcoin? I mean, do you think that the dollar ceases to be a global reserve currency, Bitcoin standard, or do you think you fear China's
I
central bank
think
digital currency more?
I hope not, but I think that if I don't know, if you look at the identity wars, Facebook Connect, Google ID, whatever the fuck the name was on the Microsoft thing, it didn't really pan out because nobody was willing to give ground to anyone. So at the end, you have to have something which is decentralized and not controlled by anyone.
Right.
So I think that it will be digital dollar versus the digital yuan, and at the end of the world, countries or large corporations which don't want to take sides or can avoid taking sides, which it's going it's a narrowing list, would prefer something which is not correlated necessarily to anyone else and will choose a decentralized option. I don't know if it's going to be Bitcoin. I believe it's going to be Bitcoin, but I don't know.
Well, we saw it in El Salvador, and we know that Paraguay is imminently going to legislate similarly. So we could start to see those dominoes fall, at least in smaller countries that have a reason to adopt. I don't see the
Yeah.
United States going onto a Bitcoin
Yeah.
standard ever, but
No,
right.
for,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I think it's mostly, El Salvador and Paraguay are mostly interesting on the taxation level. And, will it be considered an FX? And then we're very happy about that, for sure.
I mean, more than anything, that would, for your average person, certainly in the United States, that would be the biggest innovation we could get. Just
Yeah,
cash
for
in,
sure.
cash out, and don't worry about what I do with it in between.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be amazing.
At least taxably. So I'm curious now moving forward, what thoughts do you have for someone who's maybe new to the space because you see them all the time, right? You guys are a gateway, I would imagine, for people to make their first purchase or to
Yeah.
start gaining exposure. What kind of advice would you offer to someone who's brand new to the space? Maybe they just got stared by the drop from 65 to 30 and they're considering either running away forever from Bitcoin or they want to know what could come in the future and how they should approach it.
I would say, and I do say to people who bought at the top, just hold. If you can afford, just buy more right now. I know it's boring and it's kind of the same cookie cutter. Every Bitcoiner says so, but that's the only way to do it. And whenever you're struggling with the price, just look at the long-term graphs, and you'll see that we've been here like I don't know 6, 7, 8 times already. Just like exactly at the end of the day, exactly.
It's
So
one
just
shape and it
hold or
only points
buy.
up. And the funny
Yeah,
thing is Bitcoin is unique. It's a special asset, but that's true of every market, basically, unless it's literally
yeah,
tulips, unless it's literally tulips or beanie babies. But look at the Dow Jones and the
yeah.
Great Depression and
Everything is
recession were the best times to buy. So if you consider a
yeah.
50% drawdown in Bitcoin should be a great time to buy,
And
even
again, I
if it
mean
goes down more.
and the fundamentals haven't changed. I mean, if you believed in the story, you believed in the core value or the structure, or even just the ecosystem, even if you like the ecosystem and you bought it, and even frankly, even if you bought a shitcoin, just hold it. I mean, there's no reason for you to panic sell. What, you're going to save like 5% of what you invested in it? Shitcoin, just hold it. It's
Right.
probably going to recover as well.
I mean, there were coins from 2017 that I was sure were going to disappear that hit new all-time highs in the last cycle.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I think that
I
that's as
was,
good of a lesson as any.
yeah, completely. I was very happy I didn't sell everything that I didn't sell. I did some panic selling, like just like everybody, I guess.
You're a human.
Like
You're a
with
human
projects,
being.
yeah, and also projects that I just didn't think will survive. So I said like, fuck it, I'm gonna take like whatever 5% left, and they went up like hundreds of percent. It
Well,
was
that's the
yeah,
beauty of Bitcoin. That's the beauty of the crypto market is sometimes you can be a dead project and your coin can still go up 100%.
yeah.
You don't even need to have a team or exist. I mean, even
Oh,
Doge
I
didn't have
have.
developers, right? Oh, so come on. I want to hear your last like great horror story before we're done. We've got a Doge one, a Bitcoin
Wow.
one, and an Ethereum one. I'm sure you've got some others.
From those, well, I would, I don't know, like last summer, all the DeFi summer things, but where you probably had this few sleepless nights where you're jumping in, waiting for the rug pull and just escaping
Yep.
out on time. But I don't have any specific horror story, but July and August were a horror story.
I
But they
love
were
the
fun.
fact, yeah, I love the fact that you're clearly in the trenches though, and you're like really still, even after all these years, almost 10 years in
Completely.
crypto, you're still clearly on the low caps and
Hopelessly in love with the ecosystem. I really love it. I think it's completely befitting ADHD people, and it's like, yeah, exactly, everything changes all the time. I mean, you have to be ADD to be able to follow the news.
yeah, I absolutely love it. So where can everybody follow you and follow what you guys are doing after this interview?
Simplex on Twitter, Nimrod Lehavi on Twitter. That's the easiest way, I'm guessing.
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm looking forward to
Thanks, Carl.
$30,000 ETH. And if it happens, I'm flying out to Israel. We're having a party. All right.
Fantastic, done deal.
All right, man. Thank you.